When my daughter-in-law told me to leave, I smiled instead of crying. Isn't that funny? You spend a lifetime building a dam against heartbreak, and when the flood finally comes, you don't even have the energy to be surprised. You just stand there and let the water wash over you. I'm Maggie Callahan, and this is the story of how I learned that showing up isn't always the same as belonging. It started the night before my son's wedding, my only son, Tommy. For 27 years, it had been just the two of us, Tommy and me against the world. His father, bless his heart, he wasn't a bad man, just a restless one. When Tommy was 6 years old, he decided that fatherhood and a 9-to-5 job were too much like a cage. One Tuesday night, he kissed Tommy on the head while he was sleeping, told me he just couldn't do this anymore, and walked out the door. I never saw him again. After that, my life became a single, simple mission: to make sure Tommy never felt the weight of that empty space. I worked double shifts as a ward clerk at the county hospital. I learned how to make a pot of chili last for 3 days. I said no to dates, to weekend trips with friends, to a promotion that would have meant more time away from home. Every sacrifice was a brick I laid on the path to his future. And it worked. Tommy grew up kind, smart, and steady. He became a high school history teacher, a job that didn't pay much but one he loved because he said he wanted to help kids make sense of the world, the way I helped him. When he met Vanessa, I was happy for him. Truly, I was. She was beautiful, the kind of beautiful that makes you hold your breath a little. She worked in real estate, always dressed sharp, always smelled like expensive perfume. Tommy was smitten. He'd look at her like she'd hung the moon, and at first I tried to see what he saw. But there were these little moments. You know the kind I mean. The ones that don't seem like much at the time, but later, you look back and realize they were neon signs you chose to ignore. She was polite to me in front of Tommy, but the second he left the room, her smile would vanish, replaced by a kind of cool disinterest. She'd talk about her clients, her vacations, her plans for renovating the kitchen, but she never once asked me about my life. She never asked about Tommy as a little boy. It was like she was marrying this man who just appeared, fully formed, without a past or a mother. But I kept quiet, because that's what mothers do, isn't it? We swallow our own doubts to keep the peace. We tell ourselves we're just being overprotective. We tell ourselves to be grateful our child found someone to love. So when they got engaged, I pushed every warning sign deep down inside. Vanessa took over the wedding planning completely. She didn't ask for my opinion on flowers or food or music. When I gently offered to help, she gave me a tight smile and said, "Oh, don't you worry about a thing, Maggie. You just need to show up looking lovely. We have professionals for all the complicated stuff." It stung, but I smiled and nodded, for Tommy. The night before the wedding, I had one last thing to do. For weeks, I'd been working on a scrapbook. It wasn't just a photo album, it was his whole life. Pictures of him in his little league uniform, his first day of school photos, his report cards, the crayon drawings he used to make me. I'd even included the ticket stub from the first movie we ever saw together after his dad left, The Lion King. It was my heart, bound in leather and paper. I drove to the hotel where the rehearsal dinner was being held. The lobby was buzzing with people in fancy clothes, laughing and hugging. I felt out of place in my simple floral dress, clutching my scrapbook like a shield. I found Vanessa near the entrance to the ballroom, looking like a movie star in a white silk dress. She was talking to the wedding planner. I waited until she was free, then walked over. "Vanessa, honey," I said, holding out the book. "I made this for Tommy. I thought maybe you two could look through it tonight. It's all the moments that made him who he is." She glanced down at it but didn't take it. Her eyes, usually so bright, were flat, cold. She leaned in close, her voice a low whisper that only I could hear. "Here's the thing, Maggie," she said, her lips barely moving. "After tomorrow, you're not really part of this family anymore." The words didn't make sense at first. They were just sounds. I blinked. "What?" "You raised him, you did your job. But tomorrow he becomes my husband, my family. You're just extra, honestly. I've put up with you for 3 years. Tommy feels guilty, so he indulges you. But I don't have to, so let's do ourselves a favor. Don't come tomorrow. Stay home. Spare us all the awkwardness of watching you cry in a corner." I felt the blood drain from my face. The scrapbook felt like it weighed 100 pounds. My throat closed up. I couldn't speak. She patted my arm, a gesture of pure condescension. Go on home, Maggie. Sleep in. Tomorrow will be the best day of our lives, and we don't need you there to ruin it. She turned and walked back into the ballroom, her laughter floating back to me as she rejoined her friends. I don't remember driving home. I don't remember walking through the door. I just remember sitting on the edge of my bed in the dark, holding that scrapbook. I flipped through the pages slowly. Tommy with a missing tooth. Tommy on his bike. Tommy in his graduation cap. Every picture was a memory of a battle I'd fought alone. And in the morning, I was supposed to be erased. Tears finally came, hot and heavy. But underneath the hurt, something else stirred. A quiet, cold, and unfamiliar feeling. It wasn't anger, it was stillness, a decision. I whispered into the silence of my room. Okay. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. For a second, I forgot. My body went through the motions. I put on the coffee. I looked at the dress I'd bought months ago hanging on the closet door, a soft lavender. Tommy said it was his favorite color on me. Then Vanessa's face, her cold whisper, came flooding back. After tomorrow, you're not part of this family anymore. I took the lavender dress off the hanger and hung it in the back of the closet, behind my winter coats. Then I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee, watching the sun come up. My phone started buzzing around 8. First, it was my sister, Kathy, then my cousin, then a few friends. Maggie, where are you? We're meeting for breakfast before the ceremony. I let them all go to voicemail. At 9, a text from Tommy. Mom, on my way to the venue. Can't wait to see you. Love you. I read it 3 times. My fingers itched to type back, to call him, to tell him everything. But what would I say? Your bride-to-be just told me I'm disposable. On the day of his wedding, I couldn't do that to him. I couldn't be the reason he had doubts. I just couldn't. So I put the phone face down on the table. At 9:30, Kathy burst through my front door. She had a key. She was already in her maid of honor dress, a dusty rose color that looked awful with her red hair. Her face was flushed. Maggie Callahan, what in the name of all that is holy are you doing? She demanded, her voice high with panic. The ceremony is in an hour and a half. Tommy's losing his mind. I just shook my head. I'm not going, Kath. She stopped dead. You're not. What? Are you sick? Is it your blood pressure? No, I said quietly. I'm not wanted there. She stared at me, her mouth open. What are you talking about? You're the mother of the groom. Of course you're wanted. So I told her. I told her every word Vanessa had whispered to me the night before. As I spoke, Kathy's face went from confusion to disbelief to a cold, hard anger I'd never seen on her before. That little, she whispered, sinking into the chair across from me. That smug little. Oh, Maggie. I'm not going to sit in that church and pretend, I said, my voice finally cracking. I can't, not after that. Kathy reached across the table and grabbed my hand. Her eyes were wet. You stay right here, she said, her voice fierce. You stay here, I have to go, I have to be there for Tommy, but you protect your heart today. I'll handle the rest. She hugged me tight, then rushed out the door, leaving a cloud of her flowery perfume behind. At 10:30, I imagined them all taking their seats. I saw the church in my mind, the flowers, the organ music. I pictured Tommy standing at the altar, handsome in his tux, looking around nervously for me. I turned the TV on, just for noise, but I didn't watch it. I just sat there, holding a cold cup of coffee, feeling like a ghost in my own life. Then at 11:15, my phone rang again. It was Kathy. I almost didn't answer. I didn't want to hear about the I do's I'd missed, but I picked up. Hello. Maggie, Kathy's voice was strange, shaky, not panicked but stunned. It's over. My heart lurched. What's over? What happened? Is Tommy okay? He's fine, he's fine, but the wedding, it's off. The words hung in the air. Off? What do you mean off? I can't even explain it right now, she whispered. Just turn on the news or check your phone. Everyone's talking about it. I'll be there as soon as I can. The line went dead. I stared at my phone. Then, with trembling hands, I opened the internet. The first headline I saw made my stomach drop. Local teacher calls off wedding at altar after bride's secret exposed. I clicked on it, my heart hammering against my ribs. The article pieced it together, and over the next few hours, Kathy filled in the gaps with what she'd seen with her own eyes. Apparently, about 30 minutes before the ceremony, Tommy was in a small room off the sanctuary with his best man, a guy named Dave he'd known since college. They were just waiting for the cue to go out. Tommy was nervous, but happy. He kept checking his phone, texting me, wondering why I wasn't answering. Then Dave got a text. It was from someone, a woman who lived in Vanessa's apartment building. She and Dave were friends on social media. She'd seen something and felt sick about it. She had to say something. The text contained 2 photos. They were taken just 2 weeks earlier. In them, Vanessa was in a parked car, locked in a deep kiss with a man who was very clearly not Tommy. The man was her boss, the head of the real estate agency where she worked. The man she always referred to as her mentor. Dave went pale. He showed Tommy the phone. Tommy told me later that in that moment, the world just stopped. There was no sound, no anger, just a cold, clear picture of his entire relationship shattering into a million pieces. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. He just stood up, straightened his bow tie, and walked out of the room. Dave followed, trying to calm him down, but Tommy was on a mission. He walked right past the wedding guests who were being seated, past the photographer, past the flower girl who was dropping petals, and straight into the bridal suite. Vanessa was standing in front of a full-length mirror, her back to him. Her dress was stunning, all lace and train. Her mother and sister were fussing around her. Tommy closed the door behind him. "Everyone out, please." His voice was so calm it was terrifying. Vanessa's mother started to protest, but one look at Tommy's face sent them scurrying out. Vanessa turned, a radiant smile on her face. "Tommy, you're not supposed to see me before the..." He held up his phone, showing her the screen. "Who is this?" Her smile didn't falter, but he saw a flicker in her eyes. Panic, quick as a flash. "What? That's nothing. That's just my boss. He was giving me a ride home from a work event. You're being ridiculous." 2 weeks ago, Tommy said, his voice still quiet. 2 weeks before our wedding, your boss was giving you a ride home with his tongue down your throat." Vanessa's mask cracked. Her face went white, then red. "It was a moment of weakness. It didn't mean anything. Tommy, you have to believe me, I love you." But Tommy wasn't listening anymore. Because in that instant, so many other things clicked into place. The way she talked about his salary, not his passion for teaching. The way her father had pushed so hard for a prenup, a standard business practice, he'd called it. The way Vanessa always seemed to be checking her phone with a little private smile. And then he thought of me. "Where's my mother?" he asked suddenly. "Why isn't she answering her phone?" Vanessa's face hardened. "She's probably sulking somewhere because she can't stand that you're choosing me over her. She's been trying to sabotage this from the start." The words were so ugly, so full of venom, that Tommy took a step back. He saw her clearly for the first time. Not the beautiful, ambitious woman he loved, but a stranger wearing her face. He didn't say another word. He just turned and walked out. He walked down the aisle, not with a bride on his arm, but alone. The music stopped. The whispers started. He reached the altar, turned to face the bewildered guests, and said in a voice that broke only once, "I'm sorry, everyone. There isn't going to be a wedding today. Thank you for coming, but you can all go home." Pandemonium. Vanessa came running out of the bridal suite, screaming his name, sobbing. Her parents started shouting at Tommy, accusing him of humiliating their daughter. Guests were on their phones, recording, texting. The pastor just stood there with his Bible, looking completely lost. By noon, the story was all over social media. By 1 o'clock, reporters were calling Tommy's phone. And I just sat in my kitchen, listening to Kathy tell me all of this, my mind reeling. The wedding hadn't fallen apart because I wasn't there. It had fallen apart because of a lie. A big, ugly, selfish lie that had been hiding in plain sight all along. I felt a strange mix of emotions. Devastation for Tommy, of course. A cold, grim satisfaction that Vanessa had been exposed. and a deep, profound exhaustion. The truth was out, but what would it cost my son? For a few days, I thought it was over. Tommy was heartbroken, but he was free. He came to my house the day after the non-wedding, and we just sat together. He cried. I held him. We didn't talk much. What was there to say? But Vanessa and her family weren't the type to just go quietly into the night. They were fighters, and they were masters of manipulation. Within a week, the narrative had shifted. It started subtly. A few comments on the news articles from accounts that looked fake. There's two sides to every story. I heard the groom's mother was a real piece of work. Maybe she drove him to it. Then Vanessa herself posted a video on social media. She was sitting in her apartment, wearing no makeup, her eyes red and puffy. She looked like the picture of heartbreak. Everyone is saying terrible things about me, she said, her voice trembling. And I need to tell my side. Yes, I made a mistake. I had a moment of weakness with my boss. It was stupid, and I regret it more than anything. But that's not why my wedding was called off. The real reason, my fiancé's mother, Maggie. I nearly dropped my phone when I heard my name. She never wanted me to marry Tommy, Vanessa continued, a tear rolling down her cheek. She was jealous. She couldn't stand that another woman was the most important person in his life. She poisoned him against me for years. She fed him lies. And on the day of our wedding, she refused to come. She abandoned her own son. That broke him. That's why he was so vulnerable to the first negative thing he heard about me. She set the whole thing in motion. She destroyed our future. The comments exploded. People I'd never met started sending me hateful messages. Evil mother-in-law. Jealous old hag. You ruined your son's life. It was a masterpiece of manipulation. She admitted to the affair, but twisted it so that I was the real villain. I was the cause of the breakup. I was the one who had made Tommy so emotionally fragile that he overreacted. Tommy was furious. He wanted to post his own video to defend me, to show the texts where Vanessa had been cold and dismissive. But I begged him not to. Don't give her the attention, I said. Don't get down in the mud with her. People who know us know the truth. But the truth didn't seem to matter anymore. Vanessa's family took it a step further. A week later, I received a letter in the mail. It was from a law firm on very official-looking letterhead. It stated that Vanessa's family was considering legal action against me for defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and interference with prospective contractual relations. Interference with contractual relations. I had no idea what that meant. It sounded terrifying. I took the letter to my friend, Sarah. Sarah is a paralegal. She looked it over and let out a low whistle. This is a scare tactic, Maggie. Pure and simple, she said. They're trying to intimidate you. Interference with prospective contractual relations is just a fancy legal term for trying to say you ruined their financial plan. Financial plan, I said, confused. Sarah nodded. I did a little digging after I saw the news. Maggie, Vanessa's family is in serious financial trouble. Her dad lost a ton of money in some bad real estate deals a few years back. They're basically broke. That prenup they insisted on, it wasn't to protect Tommy. It was structured so that a huge chunk of his future income would go to Vanessa and by extension to them. They needed this marriage to happen to save themselves. The room felt like it was spinning. It wasn't about love. It had never been about love. It was about money. Tommy was a meal ticket. And I, by simply existing, by being a mother who loved her son, had become a threat to their survival. For the next few weeks, the harassment didn't stop. The nasty messages kept coming. Vanessa kept posting cryptic, sad quotes on her page. The legal threats from her family loomed over us like a dark cloud. Tommy was a wreck. He couldn't focus on work. He felt responsible for dragging me into this mess. They're relentless, Mom, he said one night, his head in his hands. They won't stop until they've destroyed us both. I looked at my son, the boy I'd raised to be strong and good, and I saw the fear in his eyes. They had tried to break him, and when that failed, they tried to break me. And I realized, sitting there, that if we stayed silent, they would win. I thought back to what Vanessa had said in her video. Perception is everything. She was right, and it was time to change the perception. I'm not a fighter by nature. I'm a fixer. I'm a peacemaker. But when someone threatens my child, the mama bear comes out. And this mama bear had had enough. With Sarah's help, I started fighting back, but not with name-calling or tearful videos. We fought back with paper. Sarah introduced me to a private investigator she knew, a quiet man named Mr. Pyerly who specialized in financial fraud. He was worth every penny. Within 2 weeks, he had compiled a file that was thicker than a phone book. It contained everything: the public records of her father's bankruptcies, lawsuits from former business partners, evidence of a shell company he'd set up to hide assets from creditors, and most damning of all, a draft of the prenup that Vanessa's own lawyer had prepared. Sarah was right. Clause after clause was designed to funnel Tommy's money to Vanessa and her father. There was even a clause that would have required Tommy to pay for her father's financial consulting services for 10 years. It was a blueprint for legalized theft. Now I had a choice. I could release this information to the press, expose them for who they really were, and risk a messy public war. Or I could use it privately. I chose the second option. I had Sarah draft a simple, clear letter. It wasn't a legal threat. It was a statement of fact. It said, "We are in possession of the enclosed financial documents pertaining to the Hayes family. These documents paint a clear picture of an attempt to defraud my son, Thomas Callahan, through marriage. We have no desire for a public spectacle. However, if the harassment of my family does not cease immediately, and if the baseless legal threats against me are not withdrawn, we will have no choice but to release this full dossier to the press and to the State Bar Association for review of the lawyer who drafted this predatory agreement." I mailed it to Vanessa's father myself, certified mail, return receipt requested. For 3 days, we heard nothing. Then my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered. "Maggie," it was Vanessa's father. His voice was different. No bluster, no threats, just tired. "We got your letter." "I know you did," I said calmly. A long pause. "What do you want?" "I want you to leave my son alone. I want you to leave me alone. I want you to withdraw your ridiculous legal threats. And I want Vanessa to stop posting lies about me on the internet. That's all. Do that, and this stays between us." Another pause. "And if we don't?" I thought of Tommy's face, pale with worry. I thought of Vanessa's smug, cold whisper the night before the wedding. I thought of every nasty comment I'd read online. "Then the world gets to see what kind of people you really are," I said. "And you can explain to everyone why you tried to marry your daughter off to a human ATM machine." He hung up without another word. The next day, the letter from the law firm was rescinded. A few days after that, Vanessa's social media pages went private and then vanished altogether. The nasty comments stopped. It was over, not with a bang, but with a whimper. The bullies had been shown the teeth behind the fence, and they had backed down. For a long time after that, Tommy and I just healed. It wasn't a straight line. Some days he was angry. Some days he was sad. He blamed himself for not seeing what Vanessa really was. I told him not to. "Love is blind," I said. "That's not a weakness. It's just how it works." He moved back into his own apartment, started going for long runs, threw himself back into his teaching. He started coming over for Sunday dinner again, just like he used to. One Sunday, a few months after the wedding that never was, he was helping me with the dishes. The sun was streaming through the kitchen window, and he was telling me a funny story about one of his students. He was laughing, a real, full laugh. It was the first time I'd heard it in what felt like forever. Later, we moved to the living room with our coffee, and I saw him look over at the bookshelf. His eyes landed on the scrapbook I'd made for him, the one I'd never gotten to give him. I'd put it on the shelf a few weeks after everything happened. I couldn't hide it under the bed anymore. He walked over and pulled it down. He sat on the couch and started flipping through the pages slowly. I watched his face. He saw the picture of him on his first day of kindergarten, his backpack bigger than his whole body. He saw the ticket stub from The Lion King. He saw the crayon drawing of our little house with 2 stick figures, one tall and one short, with the sun shining in the corner. He saw his high school diploma, the one I'd framed and taken a picture of. He didn't say anything for a long time. He just turned the pages. When he got to the end, he closed the book gently and looked up at me. His eyes were wet. "Mom," he whispered, this is everything." I just nodded, my own eyes stinging. He came over and sat on the floor in front of my chair, resting his head on my knee, just like he did when he was a little boy. "I'm so sorry," he said, his voice muffled. "I'm sorry I didn't see it. I'm sorry she said those things to you. I'm sorry I wasn't there to protect you from it." I ran my hand through his hair, the same way I'd done 1,000 times when he was small. "Oh, honey," I said softly, "you don't have to apologize. You're not responsible for her. You never were." He looked up at me. "You knew, didn't you? You saw something was wrong from the beginning." I thought about it, about all those little moments I'd brushed aside. "I saw some things," I admitted, "but I didn't know, not for sure. And it wasn't my place to tell you who to love. You had to see her for yourself." He nodded, a single tear rolling down his cheek and landing on my hand. "The night before the wedding," he said quietly. "Why didn't you call me? Why didn't you tell me what she said?" This was the hard part, the honest part. "Because I was ashamed," I whispered. "And because I was broken. She told me I was nothing. And for a few hours, I believed her. I thought if I showed up, I'd just be proving her right. That I was just clinging on where I didn't belong. I didn't want to ruin your day with my drama." He sat up and took my hands in his. "You could never ruin anything for me, Mom. You are not extra. You are not baggage. You are my family. You are my only family. You are the one who stayed." We sat there for a long time, holding hands, not saying a word. The afternoon light faded into evening, and in the quiet, something that had been broken was slowly being put back together. You know, life has a funny way of circling back around. A year after everything happened, Tommy started dating again. A lovely young woman named Chloe, a fellow teacher at his school. She had kind eyes and a genuine laugh, and when she met me for the first time, she didn't just shake my hand. She gave me a hug and asked me about the photos on my wall. The first time she came over for Sunday dinner, she brought a pie she'd baked herself. She asked Tommy to show her the scrapbook. He did, and she asked questions. What was he like as a toddler? Did he really try to run away to join the circus in 2nd grade? Where did he get his love of history? She wanted to know, not just about Tommy, but about us, about the story that made him who he was. And I knew, this one was different. They got married a few months ago, a small, simple ceremony in a park. I was there. I wore the lavender dress. And when the officiant asked if anyone objected, no one did. At the reception, Tommy gave a speech. He talked about love and about learning to see people for who they really are. He talked about how easy it is to be blinded by a pretty face or smooth words. And then he looked at me. "The bravest person I know," he said, "is my mom. She spent my whole life teaching me how to stand on my own 2 feet. But the thing I admire most, she taught me that walking away from something that's wrong isn't a weakness. It's the strongest thing you can do. She walked away from my wedding to protect her own heart, and in doing so, she saved my future. Thank you, Mom, for everything." I sat there, surrounded by people who loved us, and I felt a peace I hadn't felt in years. The old hurt from Vanessa's words, it was still there, a tiny scar, but it didn't ache anymore. That night, after everyone had gone home, I sat on my porch swing looking at the stars. I thought about that night, sitting alone in the dark, holding that scrapbook, believing I was being erased. I wasn't being erased, I was being tested, and I passed. The lesson I learned isn't about revenge or about being right. It's about knowing your own worth. It's about understanding that you can't force someone to see your value. You can't make them love you or respect you. All you can do is know it for yourself. And when someone tells you that you don't belong, you have to believe them. Not because they're right, but because they've just shown you who they really are. Vanessa wanted to cut me out of the picture, but she didn't understand something. I wasn't just a part of Tommy's past. I'm woven into the fabric of who he is. You can't cut that out, not without destroying the whole thing. And as for me, I'm still here, in my little house with my garden and my books and my son who still calls me every Sunday. I'm not baggage. I'm not extra. I'm his mother. And that's not a title she or anyone else could ever take away. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect.